This is your ultimate stop for everything sports. The Golden State Media Concepts Sports Podcast. Should I say more? From the NFL, MLB, the NBA to MMA, it's all in here. The Golden State Media Concepts Sports Podcast. Listen now.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the GSMC Sports Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Podcast Network. I am your host, once again, Jeff Malanoff, and with me is my other host, my good buddy, Mark Souza. How you doing, my friend?
I am doing great. This
How was
time
your
change
weekend?
is throwing me off a little bit, but
Yes, the end of daylight savings.
my weekend was great, though. How was yours?
It was also good, just nothing but watching sports, because a lot happened in this weekend.
Yeah, it seems like every game was really exciting this week, at least in the NFL. Most of them were. And college football, there was a lot of big games, so I think we'll break those down. And
I think
of course,
we should get to one of the main games of the week, which was the New Orleans Saints and the Los Angeles Rams, probably the main game of the week, with the Saints beating the unbeaten Rams at the time by a score of 45-35, which, before we get into this, that begs me I need to ask you something. Does this make the New Orleans Saints the best team in the NFL with this win?
maybe, but they were my preseason Super Bowl pick, so biasedly, I will say yes.
Mm-hmm. But one of the main things we got to talk about is the defense for the Rams was very poor, like extremely poor.
I think this game lived up to the hype in terms of we knew it was going to be an offensive battle. It was the highest over-under point total this season. It was 60 points. It went well over that. It hit 80. So.
And if you had Michael Thomas, you were ecstatic because he had 12 receptions for 211 yards and a touchdown. And Drew Brees went 25 of 36 with 346 yards and 4 touchdowns. And Kamara had 2 rushing touchdowns himself. So it was a great game.
It's a big fantasy
for everybody.
football game, that's for sure.
Huge fantasy football game. There was 4 different receivers that scored a touchdown. So it wasn't just like one guy. It was everybody.
Yeah, Cooks had a big game. Kupp had a good game. Even Woods had a decent game. But you talked about Gurley. You talked about Kamara. You talked about Michael Thomas. I mean, there was just big plays all over the place. And, of course, it was capped off by that 72-yard touchdown pass by Thomas, which was probably the best play of the night.
And the best celebration of the day.
Yeah, with the
Joe Horn.
Joe Horn's cell phone under the upright.
Yeah, I love the fact that Joe Buck and Troy Aikman had no idea what that was. He was like, "Is that a phone?" He had a flip. It's like this. Like, you should know that is an iconic celebration for the Saints.
Joe Buck probably called that game too.
He probably did,
because it was a Fox game. So,
and Troy Aikman was like, "This isn't smart." Like, you literally are saying the exact same thing. The other, like, probably one of the color commentators said during that.
Sean
game.
Payton also thought it wasn't very smart either, as he ripped into Michael Thomas on the sideline.
I'm sorry, but I would have allowed it because that was the game sealer.
It was. I mean, there was a little bit of time left, but they were up 2 scores at that time, so it was pretty much the game was all said and done.
And there was a costly interception by Jared Goff in the second half that really kind of sealed the loss, I would say.
A lot of offense, a couple defensive plays.
Who didn't really play well was Todd Gurley. He only had 68 yards rushing this game, and that's unlike him. That's kind of low for him, for an MVP candidate like Gurley.
Yeah, I think the Saints made it a point to stop him.
The Saints played well. They were winning by a big margin, by 21 points at one point, and the Rams, to their credit, did make a very intense comeback, and they almost had them. The Rams almost made this comeback, but they could not hold off the Saints at the fourth quarter where they needed to, and that really begs the question: this defense of the Rams isn't maybe as good as everyone says it is.
Yeah, and you saw Marcus Peters. He was the cornerback who got
beat
burned
multiple times.
Well, he got burned on the last touchdown.
Yeah, but it was not. That wasn't the first time that happened.
Yeah, I think also we need to give credit to Michael Thomas because he is just an absolute beast. He's one of the best wide receivers in the NFL,
He's in my top 5 for sure.
I mean, we already knew that. We already knew he was really good, but I thought yesterday was a really nice game
put him
for him.
over the top.
It was a real nice, national TV, breakout, hey, I'm the man too. So,
well, another player that played well besides Breeze and Thomas, of course, is Alvin Kamara, because he had 82 yards rushing and 2 touchdowns, but he also had 4 receptions for 34 yards.
Mm-hmm.
And another receiving touchdown.
Yeah, he had a big game.
So he had 3 total touchdowns and over 100 total yards from scrimmage. And he is such a key focal point in that offense. Michael Thomas is great, Breeze is great, but without Kamara, this team might not be as good as it is, on offense at least, because you need a good running back to complement your great receiver core, and Breeze has a great running back in Kamara, without question. And then he also has Melvin Ingram, who's not a slouch himself.
Yeah, big time. So what I liked about this game was we saw the Chiefs lose a couple weeks ago to the Patriots. You know, the Patriots still reminding everybody that they're one of the teams to beat, that, the AFC still goes through them. Well, I think the NFC might go through New Orleans, even though they're tied right now in record. We'll see what happens. I think the Rams have the easier schedule the rest of the way, but with that being said...
They're in a weaker division.
With that being said, the Saints own the biggest win streak in the NFL so far, the longest win streak. They have now won 8 games in a row. They lost opening weekend, and they have not lost since.
Well, yeah, that just shows, the Saints were kind of overlooked at the beginning of the season. You said they were going to win the Super Bowl, but a lot of people overlooked them.
Well, it's easy to get overlooked when you get killed by Tampa Bay in your first game of the season. So,
well, even before that, after they lost to the Vikings in that divisional round game, people really kind of overlooked them as a team.
It's still mind-boggling to me that Drew Brees has never won an NFL MVP. That actually is mind-boggling.
Oh, it's going to happen this year. It's him or Mahomes, maybe even Gurley.
Exactly. There's a few people.
As I was saying,
it changes weekly.
As I was saying all that, I was like, "Oh, wait a minute!
Yeah,
there's so many eligible."
It changes
MVPs.
weekly. Last week, Breeze was up there, but you'd probably say Mahomes. Mahomes had a great game this weekend too, that we'll get into. But I mean, that offense is putting up incredible numbers. Then you got Gurley, like you just mentioned, who continues to. You know that Todd Gurley has scored more touchdowns than 7 NFL teams this year.
It's ridiculous.
Yeah. So. It's going to be a very interesting race, to say the least.
I still got to put Breeze up top because just one interception out of how many touchdowns, out of an unspeakable number of touchdowns, I can't even count.
It's a ridiculous ratio.
I'm going to look it up and make sure it's what it is.
So the Saints take the win, 45-35. Why don't we move on to while you look that up? Why don't we talk about last night's Sunday Night Football game? Packers, Patriots.
Talk about a disappointing Sunday night game.
We saw
you could have switched that with the Rams and Saints.
The worst part about this game, it was 31-17 Patriots. I think it was a good game until Aaron Jones fumbled. Aaron Jones' fumble really changed the game. It was tied at that point. Patriots get the ball back. They score. They stop the Packers. They score again.
Can I just sorry to interrupt, but
go ahead.
I'm looking at Breeze's stats right now for the 2018 season. His completion percentage is 76%.
Yeah, that's absurd.
And his rating for the whole entire season is 120. That's absurd.
That's crazy. Yep.
Yeah. Sorry, I just had to point that out because that is a huge factor in this.
Mm-hmm. So, Patriots win 31-17. The worst part about this game was those people wearing the half Brady, half Rodgers jerseys. Did you see those?
I didn't get that.
That's silly.
Is it the argument of who's the GOAT?
Yeah.
Was that the reason? And they couldn't decide?
Patriots fans, stop being so insecure about Tom Brady, please. Yes, some people say Aaron Rodgers is better, but still... It's Tom Brady. He has the rings.
Yeah.
So you don't need to get in this argument or have these, or wear a goat head like that guy that kept panning to in the crowd. Where
that was weird. I was very uncomfortable.
Yeah. Come on.
But
you guys are better than this.
The fact of the matter is, it's Aaron Rodgers athletically is better than Brady when you look at that, and like talent, like maybe not talent, like his arm is better, his speed, but when it comes to intelligence and when it comes to like being clutch, of course, Brady's the best. Like intelligence really like trumps like complete athlete. And Aaron Rodgers is a complete athlete, no question about it. Brady is not that kind of guy because he throws a lot of short passes, but he's so smart with the ball and so smart with his play calling, and he knows when to audible, he knows when to just who to give it to in the right time, that he is the best. Mm-hmm. And that's why I say intelligence trumps athleticism sometimes.
Yeah, so the Packers fall to 3-4-1. I thought it was a must-win for them. And considering,
I think this puts them out of playoff contention in my mind. Like they're still in contention, but I don't think they're going to make it.
Considering the Vikings and the Bears also won yesterday, it definitely puts the onus on them to win their next game, probably their next 2 or 3 games in a row. We'll get into more of that later, but did you see Aaron Jones fumble in that game? That was the backbreaker for the Packers.
You mean the crucial fumble?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
They are going to trade him too. I know the deadline already happened, but apparently if you fumble, you get traded.
Yeah, right. So I liked what the Patriots did defensively yesterday. I thought they didn't let Rodgers do what he likes to do a lot. So from that standpoint, I thought they at least made Rodgers play a different game than he was comfortable with. Brady, I thought, was great. Cordarrelle Patterson, he's apparently their new running back now. 11 carries, 61 yards yesterday.
Seriously, though, like, should they just change his number and change his position? Because that's where we're getting at.
Yeah, but, I mean, he looked pretty good, you have to say. He runs with some power. He's fast. I mean, he's made a name for himself in the NFL by being a return man, receiver, part-time receiver. So he has some physical skills that they take advantage of. Josh Gordon had a big game. 5 catches, 130 yards, and touchdown.
Yeah, that's just the thing with the Patriots. Like, it's not like a one-man show type of thing. Each player gets a chance to perform, and a lot of them really just explode.
I did notice, though, both quarterbacks got hit pretty hard a few times. They didn't get sacked a lot. There's only 3 sacks in this game, but Rodgers and Brady took some shots.
There was one game where some dude got trucked, like with a shoulder hit. I'm trying to remember what. Oh, it was the Philip Lindsay got hit in the Denver game.
I saw that.
Saw that hit. He literally got lifted off the ground.
Yeah, it was like a swing pass or something.
Yeah, just speaking of good hits. Julian Edelman also had a pass completed for one completion for 37 yards. That big trick play they do. They love doing trick plays.
I really was hoping he was going to throw it to Brady, but he didn't.
Trying to do the Philly special.
When I saw him,
there's been incidents where that's happened before, and yet we're still only calling it the Philly special because it happened in the biggest game of the year. Mm-hmm. I guess that's the reason. I guess I answered my own question.
Philly.
Yeah.
So let's transition real quick. When we come back from the break, we'll talk about the rest of the NFL, but some notable games happened in college football, none bigger than the LSU-Alabama game in Louisiana. Alabama comes in there and
talk
routes.
About disappointing.
Routes 29-0 against the LSU Tigers. Alabama, of course, now still undefeated. They don't look like they will lose a statement game. What was your overall impressions of this game?
Alabama can play in the NFL. That's all I can say.
No, don't say that. I hate it when people say that.
Well, what I'm trying to point out is
they're better than everybody else.
This team is far superior than everyone else.
In college football, there's no one.
When you're facing the number 3 team, you expect like a close game. Like
it was close until the end of the first quarter. Then
LSU didn't score 1 point. That's not close, in my opinion.
But they were within a touchdown until the second quarter. So I guess technically it was close
for a 1 quarter play. And all intents purposes, this Alabama team, is once again the favorites to win.
The crowd was really into it for a quarter and a half, and then
they kind of realized what was going to happen. And it shows just how dominant this team is. Like, Harris, the running back for Alabama, had 19 attempts for 170 yards. Shows how great that offensive line is.
LSU's total offense was 196 yards. That is Absolutely awful.
The quarterback got in the stat column, the quarterback for LSU, Burrow, got 12 rushing attempts for -7 yards. But I'm pretty sure some of those counts as sacks.
Yeah, in college they do that stupid thing where they count sacks as rushing yards, which is silly.
So that's why he has -7 yards. He kind of was on his back.
But Alabama almost gets 600 total yards of offense. LSU gets under 200. I mean, that really is all that you need to say. But I do have I do want to make a point here. I do have somewhat of a little bit of a rant to go on about this game.
Can I just say something real quick before you do that?
You can definitely do that.
There were 4 different running backs with at least 4 rushing attempts in this game for Alabama. So they do not.
They ran for 281
talent.
yards too, so they outran the entire LSU
These are the
offense.
rushing yards for each running back: 107, 83, 27, and 17. The quarterback, Tuga. That's what
just
they
call him Tua.
Tua
Tagovailoa. Tagovailoa.
He had 49 yards rushing himself. But the fact of the matter is, they use 4 different running backs. This team uses all the talent they have. You don't see that anywhere else. 4 running backs running.
You get that. You're afforded that when you win by 4 touchdowns. But I understand what you're saying. They have a lot of talent. So here's my problem with LSU. They were down 22-0 in the third quarter. Okay. They're getting beat by an obviously superior team. They've done nothing on offense all game. Alabama had just scored. It's 22-0. You following with me here, Jeff?
I'm following you.
There's 3 minutes left in the third quarter, okay? You're down 3 touchdowns. They get
touchdowns.
a big kick return. I don't know if you remember this part of the game, but LSU got a big kick return, got to the 40-yard line of Alabama, okay? Mm-hmm. They run 3 plays. They don't advance. It's 4th down and 7. I think it was 7 or 8. So it might have been 8. 4th and 8 at the 40-yard line of Alabama. There's 17 total minutes left in the football game. You're down 3 touchdowns. So what do? They punt. I'm sorry, but that is inexcusable. Hold on, I'm still not done. You're down 3 touchdowns and you punt there when you know that you're playing a team that they're probably just going to get the ball and score again, and then you're down 4 scores. You haven't been over midfield and you finally get there and you go 3 plays and you're like, no, we're just going to punt. You're going to punt the ball 30 yards? So hold on. They punt the football. They punt the football there. What happens? Alabama gets the ball. They don't score, but Alabama advances the ball into LSU territory, then punts. So LSU loses 4 minutes in this exchange and then has to start their next drive from their own 15-yard line instead of just going for it, and they would have saved all that time that Alabama ran off the clock anyways. So what does LSU do with their next drive? I'll tell you, Jeff, because I know you're interested. LSU takes the football down the field, and we're now in the 4th quarter, by the way, because the clock has run out in the 3rd. They get all the way down to, I believe, the 20-yard line of Alabama. It's 4th down, again, manageable situation, 4th down. It's not 4th and 20 or 4th and 25. And they kick a field goal, down 22-0 in the 4th quarter, and of course the guy misses. But are you kidding me? You're still going to be down 3 scores if you kick a field goal. It does not change your outlook by kicking the field goal. Instead, you just don't try and score a touchdown. Alabama scores another touchdown. It's 29-0, and you lose the game. Now, would LSU have won if they made the right decisions? Probably not. But how do you not give your team the best chance to win that football game? At least make it interesting. That's all I'm going to say. That's all I'm going to say.
Are you okay?
You kicked 1 field goal and you had the ball in Alabama territory twice in the second half, down 3 touchdowns. You attempted 1 field goal. That's it. Anyways, we can move on.
Wow. Okay, I did not expect.
Before we go to break, I want to touch on another game. Michigan plows Penn State, making a strong argument that they belong in the college football playoff. What was your take from this game?
Michigan deserves to be in the playoffs.
That was a statement Jim Harbaugh win right there.
Yeah,
that's probably the most
statement
I've seen from his team.
This team deserves to be in the playoffs, no question.
42-7 as number 5 Michigan just takes care of number 14 Penn State. So what do you say we go to a break? When we come back, we'll follow up on the rest of the NFL action. There was other notable games, some big games. Of course, we know that Week 9 is big in the NFL. Standings have been shaken up a little bit. They continue to get shaken up. We'll tell you who won, who lost, and who ultimately won and lost the weekend.
Well, don't worry, guys. I'm going to comfort my friend here after this rant. We'll be right back right after this.
Are you looking for the very best NFL and college football podcast? Then check out the GSMC Football Podcast. Get the latest football news both on and off the field. From the NFL Draft to trades to the rumor mill to the NFL Combines, they got you covered. That's GSMCpodcast.com/football-podcast. Get updates on college rivalries, game day insights, and much, much more. It's football talk the way you want it. This show eats, sleeps, and breathes football. Don't forget to like them on Facebook and follow them on Twitter. Visit GSMCpodcast.com for more info.
And welcome back to the GSMC Sports Podcast. We just finished off a rant by my Mark Souza host, and now we're moving on to the rest of the games of the NFL. We went over the Rams and Saints. We went over Alabama and LSU, and we went over
Michigan,
Patriots,
Penn State,
Michigan, Penn State, and Patriots and Green Bay.
Mm-hmm.
So now we are going into the rest of the games of the NFL season. So first, let's go into the nitty gritty. Chargers beat the Seahawks 25-17. Shows that the Chargers are still in contention for a playoff spot, a wild card spot, because I don't think they're going to win their division because of the Chiefs. But the fact of the matter is, Melvin Gordon's a beast.
Melvin Gordon is a beast. That game really changed at the end there when Wilson threw a pick six, kind of hurt Seattle's chances to try a comeback. But to their credit, they did have an opportunity. They threw the ball in the end zone. In the last play of the game, it was knocked away. So Russell Wilson and the Seahawks fall to 4-4. Chargers go to 6-2, and they're sneaky. They're right there. They're right behind the Patriots.
They're a great team. They're just overlooked.
Right behind the Chiefs and the Pats. They're right there.
That's who they're overlooked by. It's really not fair to them. But all due respect to them. Houston and Denver. Houston wins this game 19-17. I think I predicted one of these games to go 19-17 also in our predictions. But the fact of the matter is, Denver was kicking a field goal. They missed it. And the coach for the Texans, O'Brien, said some vulgar things after the miss of the kick. He said, "Way to go, Vance." And then the head coach, he meant the head coach.
I don't know why he would
Broncos.
be like, you have to kick a field goal there. What was he?
I think it was just poor, like how he set it up. Like he didn't line it up right, or it was a bad play called leading up to the kick, I think.
Yeah, maybe. I don't know.
But the fact of the matter is,
it'll be a story. He'll have to.
You can look that up. I'm not going to say what he said because it's vulgar. And but that game, 19-17, Broncos should have won that game. They didn't. And moving on to another game that a team didn't really show up for. The Bears beat the Bills 41-9. Bears scored 28 points in the second quarter alone. As the Bears.
Well, Nathan Peterman threw 2 touchdown passes to Chicago. So I mean, you know.
He threw 3 picks in total. And
he had 2 touchdown passes for sure. I know that. So
you want to hear something weird?
Yes.
Mitchell Trubisky only threw for 135 yards passing.
He didn't really have to do much, right?
And Peterman threw 189 yards passing. So Peterman outthrew Trubisky.
Well, yeah, because he's on the field the whole time throwing the ball to the other team.
True, but when you score 41 points and your quarterback only throws 135 yards and only 1 touchdown, you got to look at like, wow, your defense really showed up for this one.
Not only did the Bears get 2 touchdowns off turnovers, but they also had a big punt return, which put them about 30 yards from the end zone, and they had another turnover in short field. So they basically scored 28 points, where they had probably under 60 total yards of offense because of field position.
Let me ask you something: is Nathan Peterman the worst quarterback you've ever seen?
The worst quarterback in college football history, and he's playing in the NFL. Anyways. I want to talk about...
Why would you say college football history?
Because even if you put him on like LSU, he'd be terrible. We can't talk about another game until we address the Pittsburgh-Baltimore game. 23-16 in a very, very interesting AFC North battle. The Ravens are now 4-5. They started off really, really hot. They're 4-5. John Harbaugh was asked after the game about his future. It's starting to sound like he might be the next coach gone, Jeff. What do you think about that? He's kind of had some eerie comments. Like he sounded like a coach that knew that he was on his way out.
Or like he was at a funeral almost, his own funeral. It was kind of disturbing.
He mentioned like, it's been 11 years. Like he kept talking about, it's like
his history, yeah.
It's like, hey babe, we've been married for like 12 years, but you know what I mean? It's
such
like
a good point. Yeah, he's like talking about like it's time for us to call it a day and like divorce and all this stuff.
Yeah, it just didn't sound. So do you think, because we've talked about it before, coaches on the hot seat, do you think that right now John Harbaugh might be the next guy? After Hugh's gone, now we got to think about who the next guy will be.
I wouldn't.
Could be him. Could be Mike McCarthy. We talked about. I know you were a fan of Mike McCarthy being fired this year when we talked about it a few weeks back.
In all honesty, I really think that Harbaugh's next.
Yeah, he might be. So Pittsburgh wins. Le'Veon Bell wasn't there. Connor had another big game. 24-107. The kid's playing good. The Steelers win. It wasn't the prettiest game, but 5-2-1. Steelers are 5-2-1. They're putting themselves in position to be in the top 4 in the AFC.
They're like, when you like think of like a cockroach, you can't kill it; it just keeps coming back.
That's Ben Roethlisberger.
Oh, you could call it Ben Roethlisberger also, but I'm like, that's the Steelers' mindset. They're cockroaches. You think they're dead, but they keep coming back and still fighting. And
somehow, someway, Antonio Brown had a nice little game. I remember that touchdown catch specifically that he had, where he beats 2 defenders and not sure how he wiggles his way around them, but he's that fast, that quick, and he showed it again. So 23-16. What are we going to next? What about the weird game of the week? Falcons destroy Washington. I thought that was odd. I think we both picked the Redskins.
I think everyone picked the Redskins.
The Redskins have been great.
Well, the Falcons have not been playing great. That's why I say the Redskins.
And the Falcons are not good on the road and on grass, and they were good on the road. And Julio scored.
They only averaged 14 points, and Julio Jones scored a touchdown.
It's a weird day when Julio Jones scores touchdowns.
This is the title of our episode, Julio Jones Scores. Because the fact of the matter is, oh my God, he scored a touchdown. The world makes sense again.
Who popped more champagne yesterday? The Julio Jones family or the 1972 Miami Dolphins after the Rams lost? Who popped more champagne yesterday?
Oh, right, they do that, don't they?
They do
every
that.
Time a team,
it's the
every
worst.
Time every unbeaten team loses, they pop champagne.
Hey, Miami Dolphins,
old are those guys
1972. Now? Give it up already. You won 12 games, all right?
It was a short season.
You guys played 7 games back then, and you could...
Well, they played 14. But granted, I know what you're talking about.
You played 8 games back then, and there was no penalties, all right? You could just decapitate people. You could run around with chainsaws on defense. Just... Come on.
What football game are you watching where they have chainsaws?
Well, you know how people say, like, back in my day, you could hit wide receivers over the middle. Yeah, you know how it is. Yeah.
Sack. I don't know. But the fact of the matter is you have a point there. And overall, we're looking at, you can still call them, like, one of the best teams ever. Like,
there's still asterisks everywhere,
Well, you can put that for every team.
Yeah, you can. How about we move on to the Bucks? They made it interesting, as Ryan Fitzpatrick always does. They were getting blown out in this game, but they actually cut that 35-7 lead to 35-28. Panthers get a late touchdown to win 42-28. Panthers quietly 6-2. Jeff, they are now right behind the Saints.
Fitzpatrick threw for 4 touchdown passes. I just want to bring that. He threw for 2 picks, granted. But the fact of the matter is, he's way better than Jameis Winston.
They had that crazy second half comeback. They were down 35 to 4. They were down 35-7. Then the Bucks scored a touchdown to make it 35-14 to go in a half. And then the Bucks come back, and you're like, oh my God, this actually might happen, but. It comes up short. Cam Newton.
I have a question for you real quick.
Go ahead.
We talked about Winston last week, but like this week, this kind of shows like he has a team around him that can play well. He's just not playing well himself because Fitzpatrick threw for 4 touchdown passes, and Winston has not done that.
Yeah, the fact
would
is,
you call him one of the biggest busts of all time?
No, because there's so many more bigger. There's bigger ones, even if he's a big one. But
he has trouble with the law too, which also would put that into a factor. No.
Well, you bring up a good question. I guess we just have to see though where his career kind of goes from here, because I mean he could. Maybe he goes to a different team and has a good NFL. He's still very young. We have to remember that.
If you're the Buccaneers, do you still see...
I mean, how old is he? 25? 26?
Something like
he's still really young.
But the fact of the matter is, do you see Ryan Fitzpatrick as the starter looking in the next couple of years for the Buccaneers?
Absolutely do not. Fitzpatrick? Well, I mean, he's like in his late 30s. I would say maybe a year. I would draft a quarterback this year, maybe a second round, and groom him underneath... Fitz magic.
This isn't a very touted quarterback class.
We got a couple games to get through. Let's do it. Vikings 24, Lions 9. Very defensive game here by the Vikings. They sacked Matt Stafford 10 times. They returned a fumble for a touchdown. Minnesota's defense was showing everybody that they're still one of the best defenses in the league, and that earlier in the season when they weren't playing very well, that it was just a fluke. Because lately they've been really balling.
I don't know about
They've
that.
been balling on defense lately. They've been really balling.
But look who they played.
But still, Detroit's not a bad offensive team. They put up points.
Okay.
They got rid of Golden Tate.
We'll see. I'm not going to say anything else.
I'm just saying it's not like they beat Nate Peterman and the Bills, But you're right. It's not like they didn't dominate the Patriots,
or
but
like the Rams were.
But Detroit, you would say they're middle of the pack offensively.
One thing we do have to talk about is Thielen's streak is over.
Yeah. All good things must come to an
end. He did score a touchdown, but only 22 yards receiving.
They really made it a point to take him away.
And
I think Dalvin Cook being out hurt a little bit for him. Diggs. I'm sorry, not Dalvin Cook.
The fact of the matter is, if he did this again, he would have been the first guy to ever do that. He would have broken the all-time record held by Calvin Johnson.
That's a tough pill to swallow. Be so close, you got to do it all over again.
You know why? You know who's the record holder?
Who's that?
Detroit's Calvin Johnson.
Yeah, that's right. Detroit Calvin Johnson.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So probably not the team to face in this situation.
Maybe the Lions were up for it then, right? They're like, nope, that's our boy. So
I guarantee you that was one of their reasons.
I think we got 2 games left, and then we got to quickly preview the Monday Night Football game. But
Dolphins, Jets, do we really need to talk about that?
Ugly game. Dolphins win 13-6. Nothing to talk about. Brock and Darnold were terrible. It was a defensive battle.
Frank Gore had 20 rushing attempts.
Frank Gore also passed Barry Sanders
on the all-time total yards from scrimmage mark. Congratulations to him. Future Hall of Famer. I don't think there's any doubt about that.
Yeah, definitely.
He's in between him, behind him, and in front of him are nothing but Hall of Famers. So he's a Hall of Famer in my mind, no doubt.
Absolutely.
And
last game of the day. The Chiefs?
Oh, right. Chiefs just mantled the Browns 37-21. Mahomes, once again, has a great game. 375 yards, 3 touchdowns. Did have 1 pick, though. Kareem Hunt had a great game himself. 17 attempts, 91 yards, 2 touchdowns.
Kelsey and Hunt.
Kelsey had 99 yards and 2 touchdowns himself, receiving.
You know what, though? The Browns, it was close. They were within a touchdown. They had 15 points.
It was a close game at one point.
Yeah, up until halftime, and then it got out of hand. But I thought the Browns played really good,
What really shocked me the most is Tyrod Taylor threw a pass in this game.
Tyrod Taylor.
For 11 yards.
Woohoo! He's back, baby.
Nick Chubb had 22 rushing attempts and 85 yards. Duke Johnson had 1 rushing attempt. Do you think he's frustrated?
He scored a touchdown, though. He got a reception.
He was mainly used as a wide receiver, but as a running back, I would be a little frustrated if I'm him. No,
it's been a really weird season for Duke Johnson. They talked about before the year.
He did have 9 receptions, 78 yards, 2 touchdowns receiving, but he wants the ball rushing. That's what he wants.
I mean, this is definitely the best game that he's had in a long time. They need to use him like the Patriots used James White. So it's nice to see him get 9 catches. You have to say, maybe not the rushing carries are there that he'd expect, but 9 catches, 78 yards, 2 touchdowns is great. So Monday Night Football, Titans Cowboys. I don't know if this game is going to be that exciting. What do you think?
All right. Well, I'm going to ask you one question that's going to be a big factor. Over under is 40.
God, that's ugly. And that's your primetime game. That's like the lowest over-under of the weekend, I think. Maybe the Bills.
I would say even under,
I think the Bills, Bears was like 37.
I'm going to say under.
I'll say over because maybe like an overtime field goal hits the over or something like that.
I don't see... This game's not very interesting, to be completely honest with you.
Yeah, I think we'll see.
I think the Niners-Raiders was more like... I was looking forward to that more because there's a rivalry there, and it's like the Battle of the Bay type of thing.
This game is between two defensive-minded teams, but I guess what we can say is they're both 3-4. Jeff, is this a must-win game for these two teams?
Has to be.
Is one of them out if they lose?
Yes. No question about it.
What if they tie? Are they both out?
If they tie...
I feel like there's a strong chance of a tie in this game.
All right, if they tie...
You'll eat your shoe.
No, I'll walk out the room for like
Tomorrow?
one whole segment.
Yes.
Yeah.
Promise?
I promise.
All
If they
right.
tie, I'll walk out the room for one whole segment.
Yes. All right, cool. So give me a score prediction. What do you think? Give me a prediction and a stat prediction. Weird, good, bad, doesn't matter.
14-10.
14-10, who?
Cowboys.
14-10 Cowboys. Give me a weird thing. Weird stat, good stat, notable player. Give me something. What do you see in that crystal ball there?
Dak Prescott rushes for 100 and throws for 100.
Prescott, 100 rushing yards. Okay. I do like the over in this game because I just feel like the Titans will have to use Dion Lewis a little bit more. It sounds like they will, based on the comments from their coaching staff last week before their bye. I do like the Cowboys to win, though. They are good at home. They're undefeated at home. They can't win on the road, but they're undefeated at home. They're at home tonight. I got the Cowboys to win 23-20. Zeke Elliott, he can't be stopped 2 games in a row. He was stopped his last game. Zeke Elliott, $125 rushing, and at least 1 TD. How about we go to break, Jeff? When we come back, let's talk about NBA. Some struggles for the Lakers. Is Luke Walton gone? We'll find out. We'll find out who also played well this weekend. Some NBA matchups that were notable. Some big games. We have a lot to talk about. We'll do that right after this.
Check out the show that's built on the MMA, from the UFC to extreme cage fighting. They got the fights covered. Check out the GSMC MMA podcast. Get the latest news on past or upcoming fights. Join us as we talk to and about some of the biggest names in the MMA, past, present, and future. When it's the fight game, there's just one show to check out. GSMCpodcast.com/MMA-podcast. Don't forget to like them on Facebook and follow them on Twitter. Visit GSMCpodcast.com for more info.
Welcome back to the GSMC Sports Podcast. We finished talking about every game of the Week 9 of the NFL season. We're moving on to Week 10, but that is for Friday. Today, we're going to the NBA, the National Basketball Association. We're going to go right into Saturday's games first. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I first want to talk about the Lakers because news came out this weekend that Magic Johnson had a meeting with Luke Walton, and sounds like he put the pressure on him. He told him that they need to start turning things around, but more importantly, that they need to play with an identity, that the team doesn't really have an identity at this point, which is a little bit understandable considering they've played, 10 games now? So we're still very early into the season. But with that said, Luke Walton is now the odds-on favorite to be the first coach to be fired according to Vegas odds. So what do you make of that story, Jeff? Already early in the season, Magic Johnson calling Luke Walton into a meeting about the lack of good things coming from the Lakers and their performances.
Well, I think one of the main things about this is Matt John said he's not worried about him losing his job. And I'm not sure how that goes, but the fact that I just think that maybe you think of maybe just looking on the side for somebody else. I know that sounds kind of sketchy, but the way I see it is Luke Walton may not be a good coach. Like, just he's a player that just went straight to a coach. He was an assistant coach of the Warriors when they won the NBA title a couple years ago, but I don't see him as a premier coach in this league, to be honest.
Yeah, I mean, it's to be seen, right? We haven't seen Luke Walton be a successful head coach, but we've also seen him take over a Lakers team that's been in a transition process, a rebuilding process. But yeah, I mean, you look at the Lakers, they get blown out last night at home. Yes, they were playing the Raptors, and the Raptors are one of the premier teams in the NBA at the moment, but they did not have Kawhi Leonard. And they went down 42-17 in the first quarter last night with a Kawhi-less Toronto Raptors team. That's concerning. The Lakers did squeak by the Mavericks this week. They beat them by 1 point. They had a nice win against Portland on Saturday night, the night before. That's a good win. Portland is a good basketball team. But losing to Toronto without Kawhi at home and getting blown out, is that a little bit concerning to you, Jeff?
Well, the Raptors are a good team all around. So it doesn't really bother me they lost that much to the the Raptors because they didn't have Kawhi. I wouldn't say that was a huge factor in it, but the fact of the matter is the Raptors are just a great team. I wouldn't put that by them. Them losing to other teams and in easy win games that should be for them is the more concerning part to me.
I mean, the Raptors are a great team, but Kawhi Leonard, not having him, not having your best player in the
Kyle
NBA.
Lowry's still a great player, and he still helped contribute.
Right, but you're still...
Ibaka had 34 points.
Yeah, he had a career high, and he missed like one shot. He was unbelievable.
What really concerned me was like on Wednesday when they barely beat the Mavericks, and that team is small. Like, that team is not a contender in the slightest.
Yeah, definitely. So, keep a lookout for the next few days with the Lakers, as this week they play the T-Wolves, the Hawks, the Blazers. They have some interesting games coming up. So we're going to need to take a look at that and see how they do in their upcoming games, because if they don't turn this thing around, if they don't get on the right track, it could be days until Luke Walton is fired. I don't know what kind of patience Magic Johnson has, but you go get LeBron James in the offseason, you bring in some other guys, you expect it. Yeah, you expect it early. You're LA, so
you expect excellence, that's for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. So, other notable games in the NBA, did you have any from this weekend?
I mean, I think it sounds like you have something in mind, but I could be wrong.
Well, the Blazers did just annihilate the Timberwolves, which I found interesting because the Blazers did lose to the Lakers the night before. But what is most interesting in this game is no Jimmy Butler.
Yeah, true. He's still
Jimmy
sitting out.
Butler.
He claims he's hurt. But another game that was a blowout that shouldn't have been is the Nets destroying the 76ers 122-97.
That's where I was going to next. That's a crazy result there. When I saw the box score, I was like,
D'Angelo
no way.
Russell had 21 points. Allen, the center, had 15 points, 10 rebounds. Hollis Jefferson, who was on the bench, had 21 points. So there was a lot of good stuff.
Winless. The Sixers are winless on the road. Okay. Still.
You had you were like winless. I'm like, I'm pretty sure they won a game or two.
The headliner, though, winless on the road still. So what about the Magic beating the Spurs? That's interesting.
117-110?
Yeah, at home. San Antonio at home.
The thing about this is any team can win any game in the NBA. It's like, it's going to happen. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. But it is surprising to see a Popovich Spurs team lose at home. Aaron Gordon did have 26 points with 8 rebounds.
Mm-hmm.
And Terrence Ross had 17 points off the bench. But everyone else had 16, 18, 13 points. So, like, it was still a good game for everybody. DeMar DeRozan, again, with a great game. 25 points, 7 rebounds, 5 assists. What?
I'm laughing because if the season ended today in the NBA in the Western Conference,
He would be the MVP?
no, hold on. These would be your playoff teams. I'll tell you who would be the
I
playoff
see,
teams, and I'll
sorry.
tell you who wouldn't be in the playoffs. Golden State, Denver, Portland, San Antonio, Memphis, Sacramento, the Clippers, and the Thunder. Now, here are the teams that would be on the outside looking in. Jeff, are you ready?
Sure.
Utah, Pelicans, Timberwolves, Lakers, Rockets, Phoenix, and Dallas. Now, Phoenix and Dallas we expect to be at the bottom, but you could almost argue that the bottom half of the Western Conference would beat the top half of the Western Conference when you look at the standings right now.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Just hearing all those teams in the playoffs is
Utah,
absurd.
Pelicans, Timberwolves, Lakers, and Rockets are all on the outside looking in as of today. Of course, extremely early, November 5th.
I'm like, we have 6 months to go.
But man, it's at least this NBA season is starting off pretty interesting, right? With like some of the unexpected teams doing well and some of the expected good teams doing poorly.
It's not how you start, it's how you finish. That's how I always see, especially in seasons that are long. Like baseball and basketball are the two, you got to finish strong. You could start sloppy, but you got to finish strong.
But you could argue that in the Western Conference, you can't afford to, struggle for long periods of time. And we are at about 10 games in, so we're about an eighth of the way through the NBA season.
An eighth?
Yeah, so think about
If
it.
you had an eighth of a pizza slice, you'd still be hungry.
But think about it. In 10 games, we'll be a quarter of the way through the season. At the end of November, we'll be a quarter, slightly over a quarter of the way through the NBA season. That's weird to say, right? Sounds weird.
I guess, sure, but I'm still looking at you're looking at this way too early. It's a little premature.
Oh, I'm not making any proclamations here. I'm just saying that it's still interesting, whether it's November or January. It's still you look at these standings and you're like, what is going on here? But what do you say we go to a quick break, Jeff? We come back. We got some news and notes in the wide world of sports, including a particularly interesting UFC event that happened this weekend. Also, Floyd Mayweather. He's back in the news. The latest on Clayton Kershaw. And a college football team that scored 77 points. We'll talk about that when we come back.
Are you looking for help for your fantasy football team? Check out the GSMC Fantasy Football Podcast. Get today's best advice on who to start, who to sit, even who you should draft. From sleeper picks to red hot lineups, they got it all covered for you. That's GSMCpodcast.com/fantasy-football-podcast. We'll cover traditional leagues, dynasty, PPR, even IDP leagues. When you need fantasy help, there's just one show to hit up. Don't forget to like them on Facebook and follow them on Twitter. Visit GSMCpodcast.com for more info.
And welcome back to the final segment of the GSMC Sports Podcast. We finished talking about the NBA and any key games we saw there, but now we're moving on to other news and notes. One of the biggest news stories is Floyd Mayweather is going to be in an MMA fight in Japan against a kickboxer.
Oh, yeah?
But there is talk that this fight will just be a regular old boxing match. There's no rules set for this fight as of yet, but it is still happening. Floyd Mayweather is going to have his MMA debut in Japan and not in the UFC.
Yeah, I don't know about this. I will bet dollars to donuts that this is a boxing match. I don't care how they kind of present this, but I would be absolutely floored if there was anything other than boxing going on in this fight. They might change the rules. They might have different gloves.
He is fighting a kickboxer.
Yes,
so
they might have different gloves. I'm not saying that there might be difference in rules, but there's no way they're going to allow him to get kicked.
I think really, you don't see him getting kicked at all.
There's no way that he's going to engage in a fight against a kickboxer and there's kicking allowed. I guarantee you. He only fights on his terms, and that's in a boxing ring with boxing rules.
How much are they offering him? That's still unknown, isn't it?
We'll find out, but
maybe he wants to just say, I've been in an MMA fight. It's at the Ryzen FF14. That's the name of the event. It is still not known if it's under boxing or MMA rules, which is probably going to be boxing if you say that. But he is fighting a kickboxer, so it's probably going to be in certain rules of aspect.
Do you think that he'll sign a contract that allows him to do anything other than box?
I don't know how much money you got to give the man to do that.
There's no money because he can fight whoever he wants for like $50 million, for in a boxing match.
If they're offering him, they might offer him like $1 billion, and he might do it.
God, that's so terrible. But did you see that Clayton Kershaw? He is sticking with the Dodgers. He signs a new 3-year contract. He had a 2 years left on his deal, but instead of opting out, him and the Dodgers have agreed to add a 3rd year. They will add about $30 million. So 3 years, $93 million on. He gets that extra year that he had. He had about 2 years, $60 left on it. So pretty much just one more year at the same rate. What's your take on that?
Kind of surprising, all things considered. But one thing that I'm certain of is the Dodgers just have the money to do this. They have.
It makes sense for both sides, right? They want to keep him.
And
he wants to stay.
He is the face of the team. Still, in my opinion.
Mm-hmm.
And they might lose Machado because there's unknown where he's going to be going. And so why not play it safe and get at least someone that you can trust?
Mm-hmm. So there was a big fight this weekend. UFC 230. We saw Daniel Cormier. He wins again. He beats Derek, my boys is hot, Lewis. You remember that guy? My boys is hot. Yeah, Derek Lewis falls to Daniel Cormier, 2nd round submission. He maintains.
It was kind of all Cormier through the whole fight. Surprising no one.
He retains his heavyweight title. He's becoming one of, if he probably already is actually at this point, but he's one of the best MMA fighters of all time. He's one of the best fighters UFC has ever seen. So crazy. I think it was pretty predictable though. A lot of people didn't give Lewis a chance, as Cormier was a heavy favorite, of course. But yeah, he makes easy work. Derek Lewis is known, of course, for his striking ability, but he was never able to rattle Cormier and connect with any big punches. But yeah, Cormier holds on. So, Jeff, did you hear?
I did hear him call out Brock Lesnar after his win against.
Tell me about that.
Yeah, well, he did note that Brock Lesnar has won the WWE Universal Championship for the 2nd time in Saudi Arabia, the Crown Jewel event that actually did take place, and it did happen. And the big controversy with that is Brock Lesnar was around 500 days as champion. In WWE, that's a long time because they have pay-per-views like monthly. He didn't show up for any of those pay-per-views. He showed up for maybe 4 or 5 pay-per-views in that time, so people were not happy with him winning this title again. There actually is a little Bleacher Report article that says this shows they don't care about the fans. The WWE does. Mm-hmm. And going into this, Cormier was saying, since you won that WWE title, when you come face for my title, bring that title so I can win that too. I feel like to being a WWE champion too. I'm not sure if this is talk or he wants to be in the WWE at some point later in his career, like Ronda Rousey is doing. But that is what he said to Brock Lesnar. So Brock Lesnar might come out at a UFC event with a WWE championship around his waist.
Huh. We'll see. That
would be cool to see.
You know what was cool to see? Clemson, number 2, 77 16 over Louisville. That's a big number, even against a college football team. What do you think about that, Jeff? 77 points for Clemson as they go undefeated, still 9-0. They beat a 2-7 Louisville team, 77-16. What do you make of Clemson? Are they the biggest threat to Alabama?
Yeah, they have to be. Well, Louisville is not as good as they used to be right now.
Right now, it's Michigan, Notre Dame, Clemson, probably the next teams that are being argued.
I would say everyone, all those
Georgia.
four. I would say each of those four. Maybe okay. I would say that Clemson and Notre Dame are not the biggest threats, but they have a possible chance of beating them and taking a championship. As for Michigan, that's still to be determined, but I still see this as Alabama being the favorite. And the thing about college football is any team can win at any time, especially in like the playoffs and the bowl games and all that stuff. And so if this is what's going to happen, it's going to be Alabama versus Michigan to start the bowl games. And Michigan might have they're definitely going to have their work cut out for them because they're facing such a great team. So if Michigan does get blown out, which probably might happen, it's probably a good chance.
How about Georgia? Georgia, could they be the team that stops Alabama? 34-17
they had their
over
chance
Kentucky.
last year and blew it.
34-17 over Kentucky, though. They might.
How much were they up by in last year's championship game? Like 20-0?
Yeah, it was. But I mean, this is a different year. So, do you think Georgia has a chance?
I think these if Michigan keeps winning, this is going to be the four teams.
Hey, did you check out that West Virginia 42-41 thriller?
Yes, last second
2-point conversion.
risky. They could have went for the one and kept it overtime going, but the fact of the matter is they went for it all and they got it all. So good for them.
It's one of those plays, right? You do it and you're successful, you're the hero. If you do it and you're unsuccessful, everybody questions you the next day. So that was a great game, though. West Virginia went down there and won the game, which was very, very exciting, very gutsy by West Virginia. So
They move up a bunch of spots after that win, too. They move up to 7.
7, yeah, that makes sense. Okay, so I think we're done, right?
We should be, yeah.
Cool. So we're done for today. Check us out tomorrow. We're going to recap the Monday Night Football game. Of course, the Dallas Cowboys are hosting Tennessee Titans. We will cover all that game from the ins and outs to the stats and both teams moving forward. We'll also break down NBA, the matchups. There's some big NBA games here tonight, again, as the NBA continues to roll. And we will see how the Western and Eastern conferences start to shake out here as we approach closer to the midway point. Obviously, we're still pretty far away, but now we're kind of distancing ourselves from preseason in the beginning, seeing teams in midseason form. So please join us tomorrow.
Yes, thank you so much for joining us. We'll see you tomorrow.
You've been listening to the Golden State Media Concepts Sports Podcast, part of the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. You can find this show and others like it at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Download our podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, and Google Play. Just type in GSMC to find all the shows from the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. From movies to music, from sports to entertainment, and even weird news. You can also follow us on Twitter and on Facebook. Thank you, and we hope you have enjoyed today's program.